We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amud Aleph in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 30a. And the previous Amud of Chisda said that the reason why I am greater than my colleagues is because I got married at 16 years old. And had I gotten married at 14 years old, it would have been even better. Hava Amina L'Satan, I would have been able to say to the Satan, Gira Beinayich, arrows in your eyes, meaning I would not have been afraid of the Yetzer Hara at all. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rava Rabbi Nasan Barami. Rava said to Rabbi Nasan Barami, Adi Yodach al Tzavri Divrech, while your hand is on the neck of your son, meaning to say, while you have authority over your son, Mishitzar Viad Esrim V'tarti, that's from the age of 16 until 22, V'amri lo, and some say Mitamne Sari Ad Esrim V'yarbo, it's from the age of 18 until 24. In any case, it's at that time that you should make sure to marry him off. Rashi says, Adi Yodach al Tzavri Divrech, Ba'od yodcha tekifa al b'nech kodem sheyagdil, meaning before your son grows up, while you still have strength, authority over your son, v'lo yikabel tochachsa hisio isha, before he gets old enough that he doesn't listen to you anymore, that's when you should make sure to marry him off. And the Gemara says, Kitanoi, we find a similar machlokas tanoim, chanoch lenar al pidarko, the pasuk says you should teach a young person according to his way. Rabbi Yehuda Reb Nechemia, there's a machlokas, Rabbi Yehuda Reb Nechemia. Chad Amar 1 says, when we're talking about teaching, what is the age that you have real authority over the child? Mishitzar viad esr mitartin, it's from the age of 16 until 22. The Chad Amar, and the other one says, mitam nisari viad esr viarba, from the age of 18 until 24, a similar machlokas in terms of the age as we had above. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Ad heichon chayiv adam l'lamed es beno Torah. To what extent does a person have to go to teach his son Torah? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Kegon Zevulun ben Dan. It's similar to what we find by Zevulun ben Dan. This was a particular student that existed at that time. Shelimdo avi aviv, that his grandfather taught him. The father of his father taught him Mikra u'Mishnah v'Talmud halachas v'Agadas. He taught him Sukkim and Mishnah and Talmud and Halacha and Agadata. And the Gemara says, Meisve, we have the following question on this. You don't need to go to such an extent. It says in the Braisa, Limdo Mikra in Malamdo Mishnah, that if he teaches him Psukim, he doesn't need to teach him Mishnah. So you see, it doesn't have to go. The person doesn't have to go to such an extent. And the Gemara says, V'yamar Rav, and Rava said, Mikra zu Torah. What is Mikra referring to? It's referring to Torah. It's referring to the Psukim. And therefore you don't have to go to such an extent. And the Gemara says, here's what we mean, Kizvulun ben Dan, v'lo Kizvulun ben Dan. We mean that you have to go to the extent of Zvulun ben Dan in some ways, but not in all ways. Kizvulun ben Dan shalimdo avi aviv. What we mean is you have to go to the extent, just like by Zvulun ben Dan, we find that his grandfather taught him. You even have to go to that extent to teach your grandson's Torah. However, v'lo Kizvulun ben Dan, but you don't have to go as far as Zvulun ben Dan. The ilu hasam, whereas over there by Zvulun ben Dan, Mikra, Mishnah, v'Talmud, Halachas, v'Agadas, he taught him Mikra, Mishnah, Talmud, Halachas, and Agadas, v'ilu hacha, whereas over here, really Mikra Levad, really the only obligation is to teach Psukim. But the Gemara says further, V'avi aviv mi mechaye, but is a grandfather really obligated to teach his grandson Torah? V'atanya, but didn't we learn in the Braisa, V'limaratem osames b'neichem, v'lo b'nei b'neichem? It says in the pasuk, you teach your sons, and we say not your grandsons. There is no obligation to teach the grandsons. Umani mekayim v'hodatem levanecha v'levnei vanecha. Now, according to that, what do I do with the other pasuk? The pasuk says you'll teach it to your sons and to your grandsons. What does that pasuk mean? That pasuk just means lomar lach. That pasuk just means to say to you, shekol hamalamed es beno Torah, that anyone who teaches his son Torah, mala olav hakasav, the pasuk considers it keilu limdo lo v'livno leven beno at sof kol hadoros. It's as if he taught his son and his grandson to the end of all generations. And so you see from over here, you don't need to teach the grandson. And so the Gemara says, Hu da'amar ki aitana de Tanya. He's following the Tana of a different brayso. There is an opinion that you do have to teach your grandsons. V'limadatem osam es b'neichem, ein li'ela b'neichem. It says you teach your sons. I only know your sons. B'nei b'neichem inayin. How do you know the obligation is even to teach one's grandsons? Talmud lomar v'hodatem levanecha v'levnei vanecha. The pasuk says you have to teach your sons and your grandsons. Imkein ma Talmud lomar b'neichem. If so, why does the pasuk say your sons? That just means b'neichem v'lo b'noseichem. It means your sons and not your daughters. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, Kol hamalamed es ben beno Torah. Anyone who teaches the son of his son Torah, anyone who teaches his grandson Torah, Mala olav hakasav kilu kibla me Har Sinai. The pasuk considers it as if he received the Torah from Har Sinai. Shenamar, like it says, V'odatem levanecha v'levnei vanecha. It says you'll teach your sons and your grandsons. B'samach le, and what does it say right near there? Right next to that it says, Yom asher amarta lifnei Hashem elokecha b'chorev, the day that you stood before Hashem by Har Sinai. And so you see the comparison between Har Sinai and the teaching of one's grandsons. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Ashkechel Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, the Shadi Disna Reishi. Rabbi Chia bar Abba found that Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he put a Disna on his head. It was not the typical head covering. It was as if he threw something quickly on his head. V'kamamti leili yanuka levei kanishta, and he brought his child to the Beis HaKnesses to teach him. Amar Lei said to him, my kuli hai, why are you going to such an extent that you don't even get dressed properly? You have to be so quick to bring your child to learn. Amar Lei said back to him, Mizuter my dechsiv, is it small? That's that which is written in the pasuk. V'hodatim levanecha, it says you teach your sons. V'samach lei yom asher amarta lefnei Hashem Elokecha b'chorev, and right near it, it says the day that you stood by Har Sinai. You see that it's a great thing to teach your son Torah, and therefore I wanted to get dressed quickly in order to take care of this obligation. Mikan v'elach, from that point forward, Rabbi Chia bar Abba lo toim umtza adamakri liyanuka. Rabbi Chia bar Abba would not taste any meat. He wouldn't have any breakfast until he taught the child some psukim, umosve, and he added something to what he learned the day before. Rabbi bar Rav Huna, and similarly Rabbi bar Rav Huna lo toim umtza adamaisi liyanuka lebeis midrash. He wouldn't taste any meat until he brought his child to the Beis Medrash. Amar Rav Safra Mishum Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya. Rav Safra said, in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya, my dichsiv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk? Vishinantam levanecha, it says you'll teach your sons. Al tikri vishinantam ela vishilashtem. Don't read vishinantam, read it as vishilashtem, to divide it in three. And the Gemara explains, Liolam yeshalish adam shenosav, a person should divide up his years in three ways. Shlish b'mikra, a third of his life, he should learn mikra psukim. Shlish b'mishnah, a third of his life, he should learn mishnah. And shlish b'talmud, a third of his life, he should learn Talmud, he should learn Gemara. And the Gemara says, Mi yodea kamachai, does a person know how long he's going to live? How does he divide up his life into three segments? And the Gemara says, Lo, no, tzricha, that it's needed, the teaching is needed, liyome, you divide your day up into three. And a third of the day you spend on Mikra, a third of the day on Mishnah, and a third of the day on Talmud. And the Gemara continues, Lafigach nikru Rishonim Sofrim. The Rishonim, the early sages, why were they called Sofrim? They were called Sofrim for the following reasons. Shahayu Sofrim kalaosios shebetorah, for the following reason, because they would count all the letters in the Torah. Shahayu Omrim, for example, they said Vav degachon chetzion shalosios. They said the word Vav, the letter Vav rather, in the word Gachon, this is in the pasuk, it says Kol holech al Gachon. They said the Vav in that word, Chetzion Shalosios, that's the midpoint, that's halfway in the Torah in terms of letters. If you count the letters in the Torah, Chetzion Shalosios shall Sefer Torah. That's halfway through the letters of the Sefer Torah. Similarly, Dorosh, Dorash, the words Dorosh, Dorash in the Chumash, Chetzion Shal Tevos, that's the midway mark of the words in the Torah. Ve'esgalach, and the pasuk which says Ve'esgalach shall psukim, that's the midway mark in terms of psukim, if you count the number of psukim in the Torah. And similarly, Yecharsemena Chazir Miyar, the pasuk Yecharsemena Chazir Miyar in Tehillim, Ayin Diyar Chetzion Shal Tehillim, the letter Ayin in the word Yar is the midway point of Sefer Tehillim. And similarly, V'hurachum Yechaper Avo, in the pasuk of V'hurachum in Tehillim, Chetzio de Psukim, that's the midway point in terms of psukim of Tehillim. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rav Yosef asked the following question, Vav de Gachon mehai gisa, or mehai gisa, the letter Vav and Gachon, which half of the Torah is it in? Is it in the first half, or is it in the second half? Amar Lei said to him, Nesi Sefer Torah v'imninu, let's just bring a Sefer Torah and we can count. Milo Amar Rabba bar Bar Chana, didn't Rabba bar Bar Chana once say, Lo Zazu Misham, that they didn't leave that place, Hacheviu Sefer Torah Monim, until they brought a Sefer Torah and counted them? Amar Lei said back to him, Inu Beki v'chaserus v'yaserus, they were able to count, because they were experts in terms of missing letters and extra letters. They knew the exact letters in the Torah. Anon lo beki'inan, but we're not experts in the letters anyway, so counting is not going to help. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rav Yosef asks, V'izgalach mehai giso, and the word V'izgalach, so we said that's the midway point in terms of psukim. Is that in the first half or the second half? Amar le Abai said to him, Psuke mio leisu limnuye. Why don't we bring the psukim? That we're able to count. And the Gemara says, no, but psuke nami lo bekinan, we're not experts in the psukim either. The Chiyasa Ravacha barado Amar, because when Ravacha barado came, he said, B'ma'arava, that in the west, in Eretz Yisrael, Paski leila haikra l'tlos psuke. This pasuk that we have is one pasuk, they have it as three psukim. The following pasuk, V'yomer Hashem al Moshe, Hine anochi bo elecha ba'ava onan. So you see that there are different versions in terms of the psukim as well. And Rashi explains, just Deshadi Disna Reshi, again he saw that Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he came with a Disna on his head. Sodin sheino roy latifas harosh, that's like a cloth that's normally not used to wrap the head. A lakisa bialma, it's just some kind of covering, some al rosho that he put on his head. Shelo leilach begiloi rosho, he didn't want to go with his head uncovered. V'lo hispik lihasate pesudro, he didn't take his scarf and wrap himself in the normal fashion. And so Rabbi Chia bar Abba said to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, my kuli hai, why are you going to such an extent that you're covering yourself in this fashion, that you're so quick to go out without the proper covering that you normally put on. And so then the Gemara said he learned from that when he heard how important it was to teach his son. So Rabbi Chia bar Abba lo toy mumtza, he didn't taste any meat, he didn't have breakfast, besar mat begecholim, a little bit of meat, that's what they used to eat in the morning, until he taught his child and he added on to the teaching from the day before. Mahadr lo mashakara esmal, meaning he went over that which he learned yesterday, umalamdo od pasuk yoser, and even taught him a further pasuk, ela v'shilashtem, then the pasuk said v'shinantem can be read as v'shilashtem, midlochsev v'shenisem shiashlishem, it means again in thirds, liyomei yemei hashavua, that means to say the days of the week, the way Rashi understands, when it says that you're going to divide up, it doesn't mean divide up the day, that 1/3 of the day is in Psukim, and 1/3 of the day is in Mishnah, and 1/3 of the day is in Talmud, but rather Rashi says you divide up the days of the week, that 1/3 of the week is in Psukim, 1/3 of the week is in Mishnah, and 1/3 of the week is in Talmud. And Tosfos explain, Lo tzricha liyomi, we're talking about days, Perish bekuntris yemei HaShabbos, again Rashi explains the days of the week, Kolomar Shnei Yomim Mikra, Shnei Yomim Mishnah, Ushnei Yomim Gemara, 2 days for Psukim, 2 days for Mishnah, 2 days for Gemara. V'lo nehira, but Tosfos disagrees, Dimkein akati havim motzi lemifrach miyada kamechai, if you divide up the week, you still don't know how long you're going to live, V'nira li lefaresh b'chol yom v'yom atzmo yeshalesh, and therefore Tosfos says that every single day you should divide it up into thirds. Al kein tiken b'seder of Amram gon kemosh anu noagim b'chol yom kodem sukkah zimra lomar mikro Mishnah Gemara. He says that's why in the Siddur of Rav Amram you have every single day in Psukei de Zimra, you have before Psukei de Zimra Mikra, Mishnah, and Gemara to fulfill this idea that every single day you learn all three. Rabbeinu Tam says we rely on what it says in Sanhedrin. Bavel belula b'mikra b'mishnu v'gemara. The Gemara's Bavel balul mikulam, that the Talmud Bavli has Mikra, Mishnah, and Gemara, and so we fulfill this by learning the Talmud Bavli. And Rashi continues, Lefikach nikru v'chulu. Then the Gemara said that the reason why the early sages were called sofrim milsa ba'pe nafshehi. Rashi notes this is just a new statement, an independent statement. Gemara, what is Gemara? Svaros v'taimes timoseyan shel mishnayis. That's the reasons, the logic behind the Mishnah. Uletartzam b'mesha sosros azu, the ability to answer contradictions in the Mishnah. Nikru rishonim sofrim k'dechsivu mishbechos sofrim yoshve yavitz. Like it says in Divrei Hayamim, they call the yoshve yavitz the mishbechos sofrim. Why are they called sofrim? Vav de gachon kol holech al gachon. Again, the vav in the word gachon. And then it also said lo zazu misham, they didn't move. Lo esparish heicharash says we don't know what the context was when it says that Rabba bar Chana said that they didn't move until they brought a Sefer Torah and counted. We don't know the context of that story. And in any case, the Gemara then went on to say that we're not experts in the missing letters and the extra letters, and therefore to count is not practical. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Chameshes alafim u'shmona meos u'shmona u'shmona psukim have psukei Sefer Torah. In the Sefer Torah there are 5,888 psukim. Yesral of Tehillim Shmona, Tehillim has 8 more psukim, 8 additional to that. Chastr mimenu Divrei Hayamim Shmona, and Divrei Hayamim has 8 less than that. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, V'shinantam, the pasuk says V'shinantam. What does that mean? Sheyu Divrei Torah mechudadim beficha, means that the words of the Torah have to be sharp in your mouth. Shem yishal achadam davar, that if a person asks you something, al tagamgim, you shouldn't hesitate, you should know the answer with certainty. V'tomar lo, don't hesitate and say it to him, ela emor lo miyad, rather say it to him immediately. Shenemar, as it says, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Amud Beis.